Good morning, everyone. My name is Sonja Rodiger. I am not with CUNY. I am not with SUNY. I am from across the river, beautiful Hudson County Community College in Jersey City, New Jersey. I am an instructor of ESL, and I'm here today to talk to you about how do we deal with AI. Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome. AI and ESL, is it our friend or is it our foe? And before I actually start talking about that, I would like to share with you an article, or at least part of an article that was shared with us, with our faculty, not too long ago, came from our Office of Academic Affairs. It's titled, College Students Not Reading is an Issue. So teachers are adjusting how classes look. And the part of the article that I'd like to share with you is this. So if you could just take a minute and have a look. Would you mind sharing why you're smiling or chuckling?
I'm laughing at his comment at the end because he says he knows it's not him and he knows
Of course it's not me, right? Because I am so great. I'm doing what I've been doing for 10 years. I'm using the same book. I'm asking the same questions. So clearly everything I do and have been doing for 10 years must be top of the line. Well, students, something must be wrong with you. So I feel like we had a very similar reaction because I read this and I'm like, really? What kind of instructor are you really if this is your mindset? Not judging anyone, but to me, it just doesn't seem right. I think that as instructors, we have a responsibility to stay current, to know what's out there in the field so that we can meet our students' needs. And so talking about current and what's out there in the field, clearly one of the first things I think that comes to everybody's mind.
So except in nursing department and medicine, and even textbook changes every year. I think as a professor, we know all the company, they're trying to sell the new book, just in concept, everything's the same. A different way to laying out and something like that. They wanna what edition is this?
Well, I think that's a whole different avenue. That's people trying to sell their textbooks for a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
That would be the OER that we could talk about, but that would be a different
Right. But
topic,
then
I feel.
Or the nursing, they have to pass a license exam.
Yeah.
And it's major it's like a politics, like big time of the published company. They're trying to possess there's 100 published company, one or two particular ones are very powerful, and they got all advanced tricks and how to make them highest passing grade.
Okay, so then the textbooks are current. That's a good thing, I guess. So, but based on the quote that I showed you earlier, nothing had changed. The mindset is whatever worked 10 years ago is still working now, which in my field, it's not. So when my school offered a class called Teaching with Artificial Intelligence, this was an online class, which was offered by Auburn Online. I took it. I was one of the first to sign up because I didn't know much. This is about a year and a half ago. I didn't know much about AI at that time, let alone how can I implement this in my classes. I only knew that it's something that's there and we should not avoid it. So I wanted to learn about it. And what really spoke to me was what's in bold right here, thinking through the urgent questions, because yes, this is urgent. And what's called the AI disruption is probably a disruption that's here to stay. Well, not probably anymore, now we know. But what really spoke to me was that there is a space to create opportunities and to support our students. And one of the questions that came up in this course was, what AI tools would you like to share with your peers? I didn't know many AI tools then, so I had to ask an AI tool to tell me what AI tools I could possibly use. And the one that I came up with is called Polite Post. politepost.net. And I use that in my reading level 3 class. Level 3 is a higher intermediate class at our college. And it was an AI experience/experiment that I integrated in my classroom. And what politepost.net does, or what we do in this class, in our reading comprehension class, is typically dealing with questions like, what is the author actually saying? What is the main idea of any given text? And typically the texts that we deal with are complex and academic. So I thought, let me give it a try and integrate this politepost.net as some sort of warm-up activity. The reason I chose this particular tool is because it is described as a quick and easy, everybody likes quick and easy, at least for the beginning, online tool that can turn your rough draft into a professional, well-written email. So again, this is a reading comprehension class, not a writing class, but I was looking for something that I could integrate in any case. And the usage of this tool was rewrite your emails with AI. Why? To be polite, so that they are safe for work, courteous, and professional. And again, I found this very helpful because many of you may have seen something coming from your students, which is a very simple statement looking like, hi, teacher, I can't come today. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. So something like this pops up in my inbox once in a while, which clearly is not polished, is not embedded in any context, but that's what I would like to receive when my students contact me. So what does Polite Post, what does this tool do with a statement like, how do I get in here? Oh, here we go. Perfect. Okay, so if our statement is, hi, teacher, I can't come today. No proper capitalization, incorrect spelling, no punctuation. If it's fixed, it would look something like this. Dear teacher, I regret to inform you that I will be unable to attend school today. If there are any assignments or schoolwork that I will be missing, could you please let me know so I can catch up as soon as possible? Sincerely, ... Clearly, this is quite a bit different from what the students have created initially. So again, this is what I use as a warm-up activity. And the way I do it in my reading classroom is I have one student come up here to the desktop to type a very brief message, something unpolished, something like, hi, I can't come today, into Polite Post. Have the tool fix that email, which we saw takes literally just a few seconds. And then the students would actually see the fixed version. So the nice, lengthy, embedded, polished email. And because this is a reading comprehension class where we think about what is the text saying? What is the main idea? What is this all about? The classmates now find the original message. Hi. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
AI ESL?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Thank you for coming. So the reading comprehension part is, again, that the classmates now find the original message. What they do is they answer questions like we do in reading comprehension. What is the author actually saying? What is the main idea? And the classmates then present their findings, and the student who had been up here, who had been using Polite Post, reveals their original message, which means this becomes a very interactive warm-up activity. Students are all engaged, whether it's the one student who is working at my desktop or it's the students in the classroom who responded to not me as the instructor, but another student. And this is a 3, 4, less than 5-minute warm-up activity, which really engages everyone. What I haven't done yet is to apply this in a writing or composition class, but I think it can be done in a somewhat similar way. If students are familiar with the tool, with Polite Post, I can see them in a writing class to actually compete with the tool. So what I would do here is the process would be for students to turn a simple statement or a main idea into a more comprehensive, polite text/email, and they would compare their results with Polite Post's results. And they would also compare their results of that composition with their classmates' results. So again, it's interactive. Everybody works on the same task. So does AI. And then we compare and see who did the job better. So I think applying tools like this is relevant in the real world, because the example that I showed you earlier, something like, hi teacher, or hi boss, I can't come today. It's just too brief, it's too rough, and it's just not appropriate anywhere beyond an ESL program. At the same time, and that's the example that I showed you as well, there is a risk because Polite Post might just sound too polite. It might just sound too stilted or impersonal or, unintended, artificial. So what is the solution? The solution here, I think, hi, good morning. Please.
Good morning. I was gonna say, may I?
May you enter? Yes, please, you may.
I mean, because it's May already. Right? May I?
Took me a minute. Okay, well, welcome. You're here for AI ESL?
Yes.
Yes, okay, wonderful. Then please have a seat. All right. So we did start late, yet too early, it seems, for some people who stayed at the beginning address. So we're somewhere, not in the middle, but at the beginning still of our presentation. What I was saying is the whole idea of students doing their own work, AI doing its part, and then putting this all together and synthesizing, I think this is where we want to go when we integrate AI tools in our classroom. So I presented this to my colleagues who sort of liked the idea, my colleagues in the ESL department, but said, well, this is all good and well, but you know, everybody talks about AI and its ethical use. You should have something in your syllabus so that students know what you are allowing them to do or what you expect them to do. So we came up with this, and I'm going to give you a minute just to go over the AI syllabus statement. And the parts that I liked about it is that it essentially says what I explained earlier. It's not there to replace students. It's there to help students. It's a learning aid. It's only there to supplement students' own work. And of course, they still have to use or abide by the college's academic integrity policies. Those colleges' academic integrity policies are quite lengthy, at least in our college. They look something like this. This is copy and paste from one of our typical syllabi, which comes down to do not cheat, do not plagiarize. We know this. But syllabi have a tendency to sound very academic and very lengthy. And again, I'm teaching ESL classes. Students may not necessarily know what all of this means, which is why an assignment had been created that looked like this. So what I wanted my students to do was, first of all, to go in their course syllabus, locate, which they don't always do, locate and read the college's academic integrity policy, paying close attention to the section that discuss plagiarism and cheating, because yes, that's essentially what this policy is all about. Then the second step would be to carefully read the AI syllabus statement, the one that I just projected earlier, the one that says you cannot be replaced by AI, but it can supplement and aid your learning. And then the third step was in bullet points to summarize the key points from both the official academic integrity policy and the AI syllabus statements, and then to report their findings to the class. So this took quite some time because, again, we're talking about a classroom full of English language learners. And what they came up with by looking at all of this and looking at this was essentially this. So the academic integrity policy, the official one that has always been there in the syllabus, students found that it said essentially, well, we must be honest. And they found the same thing right here in the AI syllabus statement saying, must be honest, must be used with ethical consideration. And we paraphrased ethical consideration as honesty. What they also found that in their academic integrity policy originally, of course, it says no cheating at all, and plagiarism is illegal. And they found the same thing over here, no cheating, and it must not be used to plagiarize. What I found particularly interesting was, and you just saw that, there was this one overloaded slide with all this information of the original syllabus, and students narrowed it down to this. And then the much briefer AI syllabus statement, that's something that students really seem to be interested in, and they found out everything that's here highlighted in green, what it allows them to do. So it's not only you cannot do, you must not do, you may not do, but you can and you should. And why wouldn't you? Because this all works to your benefit. So for me, it was really essential for students to see that AI can be used as a learning tool. It's nothing that I need to do in hiding, and I don't let my instructor know that I'm cheating. No, let's use it together and help you move forward in your studies. So this again, I presented to my colleagues, and who still said, yeah, fine, but how do you actually do it? How do you implement your AI in ESL other than the little polite post tool, other than telling students that, yes, this is helpful for you? So I created this little presentation for my colleagues at work, and I called it Friend or Foe because some of us are friends, others are still AI foes. And the foe says that, well, when ESL learners use AI in the classroom, they might not improve their language skills. They might not develop critical thinking skills, and they might not question the accuracy of AI-generated content. To which I say, this is just not true. And I will actually show you with examples of practical applications of Gen AI in the classroom. Good morning. And so here, finally, when we talk about Gen AI, it is ChatGPT, because you cannot talk about, I think, cannot talk about AI without mentioning ChatGPT. So again, I, as an AI friend, say, well, when ESL learners use AI or ChatGPT in the classroom, they can, in fact, improve their language skills. One example that I had, again, this was a more advanced reading comprehension class, and the topic was the Bill of Rights, and we discussed specific Supreme Court cases. One of the cases that we talked about was Tinker versus Des Moines. If you're not familiar, it's okay. It's just an example of one of the many, many Supreme Court cases. And students wanted to know, well, how did the Supreme Court rule in that actual case? We didn't know the answer. It wasn't in our textbook. So I said, well, let's ask ChatGPT. And ChatGPT, of course, responds, but the output looks something like this. Which is very easy for us to understand, but not necessarily for an ESL student. So an ESL student needs time to understand the US Supreme Court ruled in favor of. Wait a minute, in favor of. Is it now for or against? Did they win? Did they lose? Which one is it? So it's something that is a little bit complex for them. It's something that is lengthy, at least initially unclear, and it's an output that includes somewhat unknown vocabulary. So what do I do with this unknown vocabulary? Well, the task would be to examine the context, to understand meaning, to find synonyms, and the result would be acquisition of new vocabulary. What do I do with this lengthy and at least initially unclear text? Well, the task would be to paraphrase, and the result would be a creation of a new, a shorter, a simpler version of the text using different words and sentence structures. And that's exactly what happened, because the original output that I showed you earlier now becomes something like, and again, this is ChatGPT, and what students create is something like this. In very simple, clear, concise English. Remember, the original question was, who won? What I would want to know is, well, who won? There are two sides. Is it the students or is it not the students? The students won. The Supreme Court ruled that the students don't give up or get rid of or lose, which is shed, not as a noun, but as a verb, of course. So we did all of this in class. Did not lose the right of freedom of speech in school. So again, this may seem out of context because you may not be familiar with that specific court case, but it's really more about how can I improve my language skills going from this ChatGPT output to something that is student-friendly language by acquiring new vocabulary and paraphrasing at the same time.
May I ask?
Please.
Right. Sorry. I see that some of the language skills were put into practice here, like vocabulary acquisition, the paraphrasing part, which includes the writing, the reading. But was at any point in time this project geared to practicing verbal skills like listening and speaking?
Everything that's happening that I'm telling you now is being discussed with students. So when I say, what would be a good question for ChatGPT? Those answers are provided verbally, and then students discuss before they actually use a keyboard and put that question into ChatGPT. And then when the result is being shown, I would have students read it out loud. I would have students ask each other, wait a minute, I'm not familiar with siblings, and maybe somebody else would have an answer to it. So yes, it is a lot of spoken practice going on while this is happening, and as interactive as possible, as in I like to stand by the side and have students ask each other questions to clarify.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Another big issue is what my faux ESL colleagues say, well, when ESL learners use AI, will they even develop their critical thinking skills? I think they will, but you have to guide them. So the way I guided them is, we talked about the controversy over, what do we call this holiday in October? Do we call it Columbus Day or do we call it Indigenous Peoples Day? And of course, there's background reading going on in the classroom. But what I did is I gave my students the task to be a persona of their choice, which they didn't know what that meant. So I gave some examples where you can be the King of Spain. Maybe you are a common Italian soldier, or maybe you are a Native American, all of this happening in 1492. As this persona, how do you feel about Columbus? So that would be the first part, where they actually think, well, how would I feel? I'm the King of Spain. I'm really powerful. I'm a Native American. What's happening to me and my land? I'm a sailor. Am I ever going to go back and see my family? So choose your persona, talk about it, again, to your point, talk about it with your classmates. How do you think you would feel? And then as a second step, compare your thoughts to ChatGPT's output to the same question and report your findings to the class. So the prompt would have been to ChatGPT, you are a sailor on the Nina Santa Maria. How did you feel at that time? And that output was being compared to what students thought initially. And those two versions, the students' answers and ChatGPT's answers, were analyzed, evaluated, compared, contrasted, synthesized conclusions were being drawn, there was reflection going on, which all is critical thinking. Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Yes, sorry.
all right. Last one then. Can students question the accuracy of AI-generated content? The topic here was symbolic free speech. What came up was, is burning your country's flag allowed in your native country? Big question. And so I asked students to ask ChatGPT that particular question, but I also told them, be prepared for whatever answer is being generated because you are the expert. So at that point, I had a lot of students from Egypt in my class, and all of them said, absolutely not. Nobody would think of burning the Egyptian flag in Egypt. This is just not possible. It's illegal. You're going to end up in jail. You're going to have to pay a fine and much, much, much worse. However, this is what happened. So I had students literally in the lab sitting next to each other using the exact same prompt, asking, is it legal to burn the Egyptian flag in Egypt? And those two prompts were generated at the exact same time to the exact same prompt. So you see that the one on the right-hand side, you're right, is the one that students gave. It's absolutely illegal. There is a law, it's prohibited, you cannot burn the flag. As simple as that. Here, all this hedging going on, highly offensive, likely illegal, can result in consequences, a completely different answer. So comparing those two, and again, involving students and saying, well, you know better than ChatGPT, which one is the right answer, they clearly realize that, yeah, it cannot always be trusted. So to summarize, when people say students will not improve their language skills, will not develop critical thinking skills, will not question the accuracy, it's just not true. Because I showed you with practical examples of applications of ChatGPT in the classroom. However, to make all of this happen, I think that students need guidance, robust guidance. They need instructors who are motivated, who are flexible, who are ready to learn from and with students, and not just from and with students, from and with each other. People who come here on their potentially free Friday, come to conferences, happy to share, happy to learn. And on that note, thank you very much for learning with me.
Thank you.
I don't know if we have time for questions, answers. Yes?
We do, and
Okay.
We got a couple minutes.
Okay.
Sure, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
So not necessarily related to acquiring language skills, but thinking about like fact checking.
Mm.
I don't know if you got an opportunity earlier in the presentation to talk about that if it comes up in your exchanges or your teachings with AI and your students, but how do they also fact check the information? So it's not like a matter of them learning a language, but also potentially working with information that needs to be vetted, right?
Yeah.
So how does that factor into the learning process, if at all?
So what we do at our college is we have a very active network of librarians who come to our class if we choose to invite them at the beginning of the semester. And they show our students how to do old-fashioned research. Not as old-fashioned in terms of, let me go and take that dusty book off the shelf. Of course, that research is also digital, but it's based on websites like .org, .net, or anything that is more reliable than Wikipedia was mentioned earlier this morning. We're clearly not asking artificial intelligence for a specific answer. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So it's that combination of knowing how to do your real regular research and then combining it with whatever output you get here. The issue I see is time. I wish we had more time to do all of this in every single class, to do your research the way it needs to be done, to utilize AI, and then again, compare, synthesize, and see what's going on there. That in and of itself is a 15-week course.
A good project.
of thinking that we kind of vet the information.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. We're good? Next presenter coming in? Okay, thank you again for coming. Thank you for taking pictures. And let me just type on.